Hey there, Mikey Koger with Salt to Summit Construction and Renovation here, and today's question is, how much does a kitchen remodel cost? Stick with me and we'll answer all of your questions right here. So the first thing to cover is, what is a kitchen remodel? We get all sorts of types of remodels, all the way from, hey, I just want to, slap some paint on the walls, maybe paint the cabinets, and then maybe a new countertop, and that's about it. So that's like one extreme, is barely touching your kitchen at all, maybe just a refresher. And then the other extreme is, we're going to rip out some walls, we're going to rip out all the cabinets, all the countertops, all the fixtures, we're going to move plumbing, change the layout completely, get brand new cabinets, a brand new island, brand new countertops, flooring, paint, all that stuff. That's the other extreme. So really, that's kind of what a kitchen remodel is. So that's what we're talking about. On that note, let's talk realistic numbers. So on that first one, like I said, bare minimum, you're not really changing anything. The layout's staying exactly the same. The cabinets are staying the same. Bare minimum, you're looking at probably somewhere between $20,000 and $40,000. This might involve changing your countertops if they are an already inexpensive countertop, like laminate. If you're just changing those for another laminate countertop, you might be able to fit that in the budget. Paint on the walls. This might involve flooring if you're going for a very inexpensive type of flooring. Maybe the most basic backsplash, and then pretty much just fixtures. But yeah, like I said, $20,000 to $40,000 for just a basic kitchen refresh. Again, this isn't going too deep into the project at all. It's like bare minimum what you could do and have a new kitchen. Getting a little bit more into it is going to be like the mid-range kitchen remodel. This is going to typically include new cabinets. It doesn't always have to, but it typically is going to. And this is more like the stock or mid-range. Again, I don't want to say builder grade because it does have a negative connotation, or typically does. But you're talking like most stock cabinets. And this might, like I said, this might be changing out all of your cabinets for something new. This might probably include quartz countertops. So not the most expensive type of countertop, but also not the most inexpensive either, like laminate. This is going to involve a tile backsplash typically, because you're getting a new countertop. And this is typically going to involve some LVP as well. Usually with our kitchen remodels, like probably 80% of the time, we're doing it with the rest of the house. And so it's really easy to just blend that LVP into the kitchen. But yeah, this is typically going to involve LVP for the flooring. Anything more than that, like tile, is probably going to be in the upper tier. So anyways, like I said, new cabinets, new countertops, tile backsplash, updated lighting. I don't think I said that. So this is going to involve probably changing out some of your light fixtures, but not really moving anything. And then also some new flooring as well. You're going to be in about the $40,000 range to the $60,000 range. And again, it doesn't have to stay in that tier. It could be a little higher, it could be a little lower, but that's the typical cost we're seeing for these mid-range kitchen remodels. All right, the next range, this is like top tier, going all the way. You have the money to spend and you're not afraid to spend it. This typically we see when homeowners, they go in, they have maybe an older closed concept kitchen and they want to start ripping out walls. They're moving cabinetry, adding cabinetry, taking away, that kind of thing. This is like a total layout change. And then typically this is going to involve some higher tier cabinetry. Something that's not necessarily stock, probably a little bit more custom, to maybe possibly all the way custom. This is going to involve some higher end countertops, so something like a granite or even a quartzite, which is probably going to be some of the highest countertops we could get. This is probably going to include either a really high end LVP or possibly even tile flooring. So again, kind of like on this really higher, this higher tier finish list. The next is probably going to be some lighting upgrades. So you're not just changing out fixtures. This might involve moving lights, opening up the drywall above you, moving lights to where your new layout's going to be, possibly adding some stuff, possibly taking away as well. This could also involve, with the layout changes, moving plumbing. So typically your sink is going to stay in the same place just because, hey, you're comfortable with your sink there. Maybe it's facing the window. It makes the most sense. But sometimes we do see where people will add their sink or move their sink to their island. And so that's going to involve some plumbing differences. I've also seen where people will add plumbing in a different area. So maybe you have your sink over here, but you want to add, some sort of like a pot filler on the countertop over here, that kind of thing. In this type of kitchen remodel, we're probably seeing on average anywhere from $60,000 to $90,000. And I've even seen it go way above that. And so it really just depends. Like I said, it depends on your footage. It depends on the finishes you choose. It depends on just kind of the general, theme or I guess vibe of what you want your kitchen to be. And honestly, once you start going into those higher tier, like custom or higher end remodels, the sky's the limit. I've seen cabinet packages alone cost 70, 80, 90,000 just by themselves, not even including the labor of installation, not including any other scope items. So when I say 90,000, that's probably going to be like the average house. But I mean, we've seen kitchen remodels that are easily 150,000 for just the remodel. And honestly, like I said, that's not even hitting the ceiling. This is where a lot of homeowners get caught off guard. You might be wondering, whoa, why are these numbers so massive? How could they get so high? I was thinking my remodel was going to cost me $5,000. What are you talking about? To be perfectly honest with you, you could have two identical kitchens in terms of the same amount of square footage. The plumbing's in the same place, like just the same layout in general. You could have two separate kitchens that are almost identical, but the remodel cost is so astronomically different just because of the finishes they choose. One guy chooses stock cabinets, or he chooses to just paint his cabinets, his existing cabinets, and the other guy chooses a $30,000 cabinet package. One guy chooses an $8 square foot laminate countertop. The other guy chooses a $150 per square foot quartzite countertop. So there's just so many different variables in just the finishes alone, not including structural work of moving walls or anything else like that, or utility work like moving electrical or plumbing. So real quick, I'm going to go through some of the top things that are going to influence that top end pricing. The first thing is going to be cabinets, like I was saying. I mean, you could easily get a cabinet that might be, $350 per box. And so let's say if you have a kitchen that's only made up of 10 cabinets, you could be looking at a $3,500 cabinet package. But somebody else goes for the cabinets that are a little bit more custom, and they might be $1,000, $2,000, or $3,000 per box. So now for that same 10 cabinet package, which honestly is on the low end, you might be looking at $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 cabinet package. So there's a lot. That's probably the biggest cost driver is going to be your cabinetry in and of itself. The next one is going to be your countertops. Like I said, you could have a laminate that's $8 or $10 per square foot, and then the next guy has $100 or $120 or $150 per square foot quartzite or granite or some sort of other natural stone. So, those things really do add up fast. Another one is, how custom are you going to want your work? Are you going to have custom radiuses? Are you going to have a waterfall countertop? Like that kind of stuff really does, like I said, it adds up quickly. The next one is, how complex and how much backsplash do you have? I've seen backsplash packages go for $18 a square foot. I've honestly even seen them go for $15 a square foot installed. And I've even seen them go up to $35 or $40 or even $50 per square foot installed. So it really just depends on how expensive your tile is, how much tile work you have, how complex your backsplash actually is. The next one would be layout changes. I'd say probably the most common layout change we see is when somebody will have like an older kitchen that has kind of an L shape coming out of the wall, and the L shape is, some cabinets coming out, and that was kind of like the island. And we see these a lot with older homes back in like the 80s and 90s, possibly even before. Well, a lot of people this is like I said, this is the most basic revision we're seeing, where people will take out that L shape and just add an island a little bit further out. So now you have a walkway around the island instead of just that L shape that kind of ended in a dead end. And so that's like the most basic, most simple layout change we'll see. Another one is like just deleting cabinets. Sometimes people say, hey, this cabinet over here is ugly. I want to remove this and just have floating shelving. That's one we see often as well. And then you could go all the way where people are saying, hey, I want to remove this wall over here. I want to cut out this area of my pantry. I want to extend my pantry. We see that a lot. And, sometimes this can involve a lot of structural work. Now you're getting into engineering territory where you might have to pay a couple $1,000s for plan work and for a site inspection from an engineer. Not only that, but you're talking more labor, more, now you have framing, you have drywall, painting, more paint work. You're also talking a lot of electrical revision. Most of the time, like 90% of the time, anytime you have a wall, you're going to have some electrical in there. You might even have HVAC. I've seen that where people will have HVAC, there's like a furnace flute going up inside of a wall right in the kitchen area. So this could get a lot more in depth with the layout changes. I kind of hinted at this next one, but plumbing and electrical changes. Like I said, if you're going to keep your sink in the same place, more than likely you don't have to change your plumbing up too much. But if you want to move your sink, or if you want to move it to the island, that's going to involve some plumbing changes. Another one I see is maybe moving your gas stove from an exterior wall to your island. We actually just did a remodel like that where they have the gas stove in the middle of the kitchen now. It looks great. That's going to involve removing subfloor and routing that plumbing to the center of the room. And then, as I stated before, you could have some people that want to add, maybe they want to keep their sink in the same place, but they want to move or add additional plumbing in other areas, like a pot filler. One question I get all the time is, can I paint my cabinets? When do I know if I should paint them or replace them? Well, my rule of thumb is if you have real wooden cabinets, for instance, like most of the cabinets we see that were installed in the 70s and 80s are going to be some oak cabinets. Those you could paint all day long because they're a lot higher quality in terms of their build. And so they're going to, the paint is going to adhere a lot better. And also they're just going to look a lot better. But if you have cabinets, let's say they are stock cabinets from a big box store, let's say, if they're melamine wrapped or if they're, if you could feel it and it's kind of like a plastic enamel type thing. I can't really explain the material besides melamine or some sort of like wrapped material. Paint probably isn't going to adhere as well. And also they're probably just cheaper cabinets in general. My personal preference would be just to replace them with a better cabinet. Of course, if it's not in your budget, you could definitely paint them, but it's probably not going to get as good of a result as if they were wooden cabinets. The fact of the matter is the kitchen is going to be the single most expensive room in the house, right above your bathroom. The reason is simple. There's a lot of very expensive components, and people care a lot about how their kitchen looks and functions. Because this is the space where your family gathers, your holidays happen, and honestly, just your daily life happens in this room. So a lot of the times, people are just willing to invest a lot more into their space to be comfortable in their day-to-day life, and then also when they have family over. At the end of the day, it's just important to get right. I hope I answered some burning questions for you. I hope I gave you some good ideas about what the ranges could be for your kitchen. I don't know where you fall in your project, but if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. My name is Micah Koger with Salt to Summit Construction and Renovation, based here in Logan. I service all of Cache Valley and the broader northern Utah area. So like I said, don't hesitate to reach out. We could talk some numbers. Maybe I could walk you through your project. And at the bare minimum, maybe I just give you some advice. Anyways, I appreciate you sticking with me. Like I said, I hope I answered some questions for you, but thanks for watching and you have a good day.